Hey everybody, welcome to this short video on how to retrieve cameras for the Southern Interior Mule Deer project. So for this video, I'm going to skip a couple parts which are covered in another video, so have a look at that. But for this one, I'm just going to cover the few important details for actually retrieving our cameras. And so, it's really quite simple. As you start approaching the camera site, which you'll either have been to before because you set that camera up, thank you very much, or you just were given a set of coordinates and are going to a spot blindly. In the latter, well, you might be given some information on what sort of the hike-in was like or whatever, but it's new ground to you. So, if that's the case, you don't exactly know where the camera is. As you're approaching the site, as you're approaching your coordinates, which should correspond to the tree where our camera is set up on, you should see some orange ribbon somewhere nearby there. There should be some hanging from trees in a couple of spots and maybe wrapped around some trees if it's some denser forest. But certainly you should see a double band of ribbon, two bands, within about 20 feet of the camera position. So that will help you sort of narrow your search. Once you're within that area, it shouldn't take long to see a reference post that we are setting up on the other side of the trail from our trail cameras. And those look like this guy over here. You can see that over there. That's our reference post. We will actually be keeping those in position. You won't take that down when you take the camera down. That will give us a reference for when we set the camera back up to make sure that we're aiming it in the same spot. Okay. Now the next thing is that we want to take this puppy down. But before we do that, we actually want to start approaching the camera. So we found our site. We see the camera. We're actually going to stand on the trail, which we're trying to detect animals on, and take a photograph of that camera as it is set up, so that we can see if it was moved from the time it was originally set up, and it will give us a reference for when we are trying to set it back up again. Okay, so take a photo of the camera. It's going to be taking a photo of you too, which is great because that lets us know whether or not it's working at the time that you retrieve it. So it's really important that you actively walk in front of the camera on your way to retrieve it. Then you're just going to open up the housing, flick the camera to off, which it'll flash up and tell you a bit about how many photos it's taken and what the battery life is like. And I'm going to ask you to record what the battery life is on your data sheet. If there is anything funny about the camera, if you think it's not working right, it's clearly damaged, or there's water damage, or it's not on, make notes of that. Now you're ready to dismount this camera, but before you just go ahead and tear it all off of the tree, make careful note of where the actual camera is sitting on the tree. So I'm going to ask that you either do a few bands of orange ribbon horizontal and then a couple vertical bands over the location that the camera was set at, so that we can find the exact spot that the camera was at when we return to set it back up to look at the same location. Ribbon is one option. You could use a knife and scuff the bark off in a pretty obvious manner. That would work okay. You could use lumberjack tree paint. That would be perfect to do a little mark behind here so that you know that's the spot where the actual camera was. Whatever you want to use, that's great. The point is just to do something that works so that we can re-find the same location. And then go back to the part of the trail where you took your photo originally of the camera, and now take a photo of the marking of the camera. Just lets us know if it's been modified by the time that we go back to it. Okay, so the final thing is the retrieval is quite easy. You've taken the camera down, you've recorded if there's any damage, you've written down the date and made any pertinent notes about the camera. The last thing is packaging everything up, heading home, and then just like with camera setup, I want you to get home at the end of the day and send me the summary of the photos that you took down, and just so now I know that camera is down. Just be sure to do the few key steps of walking in front of the camera as you approach so that it can take your photo. Take a photo of the setup, and then make sure you mark where the actual camera was on the tree, or if it was stuck in a metal post on the ground, potentially leave the post. That would work okay. But the point is just so that we can relocate these spots. Okay, so you mark that spot, take the camera down, bundle it up, put it away in your bag, put the lock away in your bag, leave the reference post, and you're ready to go. It's a pretty quick procedure. That essentially wraps up the retrieval procedure. Thanks a lot for listening and watching, and have fun getting out there and taking down some cameras.